I would like to go over the concepts involved in understanding media queries with respect to this assignment. Now, the first thing you need to do is actually study the HTML and CSS to understand the layout. So on the left-hand side, I have the code, the HTML, in Adobe brackets. On the right-hand side, we're looking at the web page in Chrome. Now here's my header on the left. That header is 100% width. And you can see that over here. It goes all the way across the page. Next we have our navigation. And if you look at the navigation, you can see that's a fixed width. Now we have our aside, which is the container where the image is. And if you can see it's a fixed width. Now we're going down into the main content. And here, again, it's a fixed width. Inside the main content, we have 3 columns that are a fixed width. At the bottom, we have a footer that is a fixed width. The footer contains 2 sections that are a fixed width. How do I know they're fixed widths? Even if you can't eyeball it, what you need to do is to go into the CSS and find where those widths are. Now here's something that I do that I find very useful. What I will do is I will put an outline, a CSS outline in there so that I can actually see it. Now here's my aside, and I have a width of 960. And here, over here, notice there's my green outline. This is 960. The navigation is 960. Now we're going down to the main content. Width 960. Look on the left. There it is. And this is the selector. There's my outline of red. And this outline is purely for development purposes. You need to actually put outlines. You could put borders, but outlines work better because they don't take up width. You actually need to go in there to accurately see where your containers are. And one more thing, I'll go down. There's my class equals col 3. There we are, 3 fixed widths of 300 pixels, and there's my outline. You can't see the outline that well because I have 2 of them on. But there it is. Finally, down in the footer section, there's a div inside the footer, width of 960. The first thing you want to do when laying out the media queries is to get rid of the widths. The second thing you want to do is to work with the floats. Then you start working with the content, the margins, the paddings, the text. However, for this assignment, I'm mainly concerned that you get the main structural layout responding. The media queries go down at the bottom because everything is inherited. These media queries are going to inherit everything above them. So how we change what happens is we need to find the exact selector where the original style was set and to use that selector and to rewrite that style. Now, one thing that I do, and I find this very helpful, is that in my media query, so that I can test that I've actually gotten to that point, I will set something in the page that I can see. So here I'm setting the background color to blue in the body for the 960 breakpoint. Here I'm setting it to green for the 768 breakpoint. So as my page changes, there's blue. That means I have just hit the 960 breakpoint. Now if I go in a little bit further, there's green. That means I have now hit that 768 breakpoint. And notice I have a scroll bar. So this is the first thing you should do. You need to figure out what needs to change. And the first thing that's always going to change is anything that has a fixed width. That's your number one priority. Because when the screen size changes, look, these things start not looking good. And we have to fix it. All right, so that being said, the assignment said that we're going to remove this at the first media query, I believe. All right, so how do we remove this? The first thing we need to do is figure out what this is. This is my side. All right, now, based on what I have here, I have to find out what selector is being used to make this into a fixed width, because I can see it's a fixed width. All right, let's go up and take a look. So here we are, we're using an element selector. You have to use the identical selector or else it's not going to work. Now what we're going to do, we're going to just remove it. So if I go down into my media query here, and let me fix this one. And my selector is a side. And I'm going to set the display value to none. We have it visible for a while, and then as soon as we hit the 960 breakpoint, how do I know I hit the 960 breakpoint? I set a background color of blue. So what a media query does, it will allow you to overwrite or change styles based on some criteria. The criteria being that the screen is going to be 960 pixels or less, the maximum, which means it can be less than that. However, I have a second breakpoint coming up at 768. So at 768, I might change some other things also. Now notice, when I change my browser to the 768 breakpoint, it's green. Do I see the image? No. Why? Because this style on my left, this rule, is inherited down there. Because I'm saying at 960 or less. Well, 768 is less than 960, correct? So this will still take effect. You do not need to repeat. Now, another thing, at this breakpoint, do we not have the font size, and we have the background, and we have all the other styles, right? Everything up here is being inherited into here and into every media query unless we tell it not to. And we tell it not to by changing our styles. What we need to do next is we're going to set our widths. So we have two widths that are 960. We have this outer width of 960, and we also have this width of 960. So let's take a look at where they are. So my first one is in pound content. So this is my selector. On a smaller screen, you're going to change your outer containers to 100%, and you're going to change your inner containers to a relative percentage based on 100. So this 960 is going to get changed to 100%, and this is my selector. Now, if I scroll down to my media queries, here's my selector, pound content. Width, 100%. And if I save it, and I reload, and let's see what happens. There we are. Notice, it's all filled up. And it will stay that way for the green one also, because it will be inherited. Now, the reason my 3 columns are not looking right is because they're still at 300 pixels. So we can change them next. Let's take a look at where they are. That's my dot col 3. And I have them set at 300 pixels. You know, I do have some paddings and margins, and you can just leave that alone. So if they're 300 across based on a 960 layout, figure 30% each. If you want to go with 33% each, that will work also. I'm not particular with respect to the accuracy. There are rules for this if you want to make everything 100% accurate. A lot of times you can just estimate, and the estimates usually work well. And I'm just concerned that you understand the concept at this point. So if I use this selector, and now I'm going to write another rule, and here the width is going to be 30%. So if I save this and I reload, now when I start moving, there we go. Notice, look how nice. Look at them changing. They're changing dynamically 30%. And they're going to continue changing the 30% all the way down in green as long as they can. However, when we get to a phone, we're going to stack them. All right. So this is the procedure. This is the process. And by the way, do one thing at a time and test it. Don't sit there doing 1,000 things at once. Work from the outside in. Get your layout, your container, your width layout first, and then deal with everything else. Okay, we need to work with this bottom, this footer stuff. Here we have footer div. We have a div inside the footer that is a 960 pixel. That needs to go to 100%. Let's use the same selector. I can copy this. I'm going to bring it down here. There we go. And that's going to go to a width of 100%. Let me save that. Let me reload. And if I change, there we go. Now, inside that width of 100%, we still have 2 fixed widths. So let's take a look at that. Here is pound contact that has a width of 320. Here is pound more that has a width of 640. So let me start with pound contact. And that was 320. So here again, we can approximate. And if you want to just put it at 32% for 320, that'll work. It's approximately 1/3, 2/3. And now we have the other selector, which was pound more. That's at 640. And we can put that at 64%. However, if you wanted to just work with this to make it go to 100, I could say 34 and 66, and that would take me to 100%, because we want to always be adding up to 100%. Here again, if you left it at 32, 64, it really wouldn't matter with respect to how it looks. So if I save this, and now I'm going to reload, and now let's take a look at how everything looks at the bottom. I'm moving it over. Look how nicely. Look, it's all percent now. Notice, everything is a percent. Okay, and that works fine for the tablet. Now we need to work with the phones. On the phones, everything goes to 100%. So we're going to need these selectors here. and we're going to change them to 100%. Everything is going to stack on the phone. We need our call 3 up here. The other ones are already 100%. We don't need to repeat them. This is going to go to 100%. And we also need to clear that float. They have floats on them, so that everything will stack up. If they're still floating, then they're not going to stack up correctly. So if I reload, so here we are, we're on the desktop, and this is our traditional desktop layout. As I start getting smaller, all right, now it's blue. Everything is at 33% across. These are balanced percents. This is 100%. You don't have to worry about the navigation. As we get closer to the phone, there we go. Now, these are all, how do I know they're 100%? There's my box. Everything is 100%. We missed something. How do I know we missed something? Because I have a horizontal scroll bar here. So I have to think about, what did I miss? Oh, I guess it's the it's the navigation. All right. Okay, it is that. I believe it's the navigation. So what we're going to do is we're just going to change that navigation to 100%. There it is. All right, so I need to change that navigation. Now notice, there might be a little bit of issues with some margins or something that we might need to deal with. Our text might need to shrink a little bit. But this is the general overall approach that you need to adhere to when working with media queries. Start from the outside, work with the percents, work with the floats, and then work with the inner content. And if you need to remove things, change sizes, whatever, always use the original selectors. If there is not an original selector available, then you can use whatever would work for you.